'Twas the best of times. 'Twas the worst of times. Deconverted man here. Oh, good. John Brister has uploaded a video. Haven't heard from him in a year. This video, of course, has comments turned off. Walk, 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 walk. The last we heard of him was in a debate where he got crushed by the person debating him. I said, hey, debate me. And he was like, okay. But I never saw that comment because the thing was turned off and I didn't know it at the time, so I never saw anybody comment on my stuff that it was there. And I had to like turn this thing and push a button and everything. And I used it. Anyways, I emailed him and asked him for a debate. Well, I'm not gonna wait though. This video must be eaten. Oh yes, it must be eaten now. Everything that he says in this video is wrong. It's a 4-minute, 52-second video. So this video is gonna be like 5 hours. So here we go.
According to Shakespeare's Hamlet, there are more things in heaven and earth than are built on in your philosophy.
That's nice. Let's see what the quote really is. Let's see. Hamlet. There are more things in heaven and hell. Okay, so it's the actual quote is that one may smile and be a villain. There are more things in heaven and earth, for Toro, than are dripped in your philosophy. So this is a weird appeal to a tangential play, as if this has any bearing. I mean, is this an essay? Are you trying to write an essay? And if you did, then you would have cited this and actually said it correctly. But you didn't. Let's go back just to make sure.
According to Shakespeare's Hamlet, there are more things in heaven and earth than are built on in your philosophy.
Yeah, I mean, kind of, but yeah, not an exact quote. So
This we're justified in our immediate perception of the existence of the external world and other minds, our own consciousness, memory, and our belief in God is also justified.
well, we are kind of justified in our acceptance of the external world, but also kind of not. We know that our senses can be fooled and that they can fail us. We absolutely know that by observing other people. It's not that difficult. I mean, you know. So if we don't take care of those that would be unable to navigate reality on their own, then they die out. So we humans have developed over time a caring attitude towards our young, and that's made us um, ensure that those without sight or hearing or whatnot can survive adequately, and now they can even thrive and do. They've done amazing things. We know that our senses can fail, but there's degrees. There's a gradient. It's not an all or nothing proposition. It's not, well, either you trust your senses all the time, 100% completely, or you don't. No, it's not that. It's that you have to kind of trust your senses in order to navigate the world, but they could be wrong, and you recognize that, and then you rely upon others to notice if they're wrong. Internally, I can't necessarily recognize mental instability, perhaps, if it's severe enough. So that's going to take somebody else to notice. there are things that you simply won't be aware of as an individual that a outsider would be aware of. So that's the caveat to that we're justified in our experience of the outside world. It's like to a degree. And as far as God goes, well, there's this question of, well, you haven't told us what God is. And so that's a problem. What religion are you talking about? All you say here is that at its core, atheism lacks humility. This is a brief video describing how ideological atheism lacks humility. So far, you haven't talked about anything that relates to that topic. But if you're going to introduce the God concept, well, what do you mean by God? What does this have to do in reference to atheism? Atheism is not a worldview. It is not a religion. It holds no tenet. So how could it lack humility? Uh, anyways, so yeah, you're wrong already, and you're wrong again. So that's two wrongs already. We're gonna keep track, maybe.
But given atheism, there is no reason to trust our cognitive faculties or sensory perceptions.
Well, it's not given atheism. It's given the way our bodies are, regardless of if there's a God or not. Doesn't matter. We still can't fully trust our faculties. Not 100% at any rate. I don't know what degree it would be, but it certainly wouldn't be that we just blindly trust our own facilities. I suppose we kind of have to in a way. That's how we live our everyday life. We go about it as if everything is fine. But if you have a blind spot in your eye, you're not going to necessarily notice that unless something happens to force you to notice that. And that's going to be true whether or not there is or isn't a God, but on atheism makes no coherent sense because atheism isn't a worldview. So that's like what, three, four different things you got wrong. I don't know.
Concerning the external world, causation, or other properly basic beliefs. And if atheism is true, there is no meaning to anything or in any particular thing.
No. And what do you mean by atheism is true? This is a broken idea. What do you mean by atheism? I suppose what you're trying to say, if there's no God, then X, Y, and Z. But then you have to show the association causation between there being no God and these things being true. And also, you don't just mean God. I'm gonna. I know what you're gonna say because I listened to a bit of this, but also an afterlife has to be involved, or you think that somehow things become meaningless. Uh, Objectively speaking, there doesn't appear to be some sort of meaning of the universe because that's just a thing that is. And the only meaning that we can derive is subjective. It comes from us. It comes from myself or it comes from others. I ascribe meaning, but yes, in truth, there might not be a meaning. I don't know if I could say there was no meaning or there was meaning. It doesn't appear to be an objective meaning, but that doesn't mean what you think it means. It's just a reflection of this is how reality is. That's not the same as nothing matters. There's a difference in nuance there that apologists often overlook, and theists sometimes overlook. That yes, it might. Yes, eventually the universe is going to heat death. That doesn't make it worthless. It doesn't make it meaningless. Doesn't make it all. Well, what's the point? I mean, who cares? We're all going to die one day. Whatever. You know, like no, that's nihilism. You can complain about a nihilistic belief, but that's not atheism.
All ends in the grave. All was for nothing, and all is for nothing.
See, there you go. So you need an afterlife for it to matter. So you don't have to have a God, as long as you have an afterlife of some sort. But why does that, like, just because the story is over, that doesn't mean the story was pointless. If a movie, when the movie ends, you don't go, well, that was a waste of time. The movie's over, so that's it. You know, um, it's just a dim view of reality.
But of course, no atheist lives that way. Indeed, virtually all atheists have so internalized a Judeo Christian ethic, a progressive discovery of theology.
Okay, that's one hell of a claim. Do you have anything that supports that? You don't? Oh, wow. Amazing. So it's just a bald assertion then. Okay.
That has safeguarded this. But if atheism is true, all is meaningless.
Uh, no. There would still be meaning to plenty of things. You mean objective meaning? You mean like a purpose to it? Uh, Depends what you're talking about. There's some nuance there that you're lacking. And again, atheism is true. What is it? What do you mean by that? That doesn't make sense.
As Dostoevsky said,
I don't care.
if God does not exist, all things are permitted.
That's true even if God does exist, though, because uh, you don't, God appears to sit back and allow things to happen regardless. So everything is permitted, whether there's a God or isn't. Now, maybe you believe, on top of believing in a God, that there's some sort of cosmic justice awaiting everyone. And that might be the case. We don't know. We couldn't know that. We could hope for it, pretend that it was there, but that doesn't mean that it actually is there. Eventually, you'll be sorry for all the bad things you've done. But that's like, well, that would be interesting if that was the case. This sounds like Zoroastrianism. If you do a lot of good things, you'll be rewarded. If you do a lot of bad things, you'll be punished. And the scale tips one way or the other. So if you've done a lot of bad, you can do a lot of good to make up for it. Or something like how does it work, right? How is this justice dealt out? But if you're using a particular system of God, say Christianity, it's not about what you did or didn't do. It's about whether you believe in a certain thing or not. You're rewarded based upon your belief, not upon your actions or lack thereof. So the cosmic justice doesn't exist under that system. Every theology has its own system. If it has a system of cosmic justice, it has different ones, different ways of looking at it. So depends on your theology. So the lack of nuance here is quite telling. Uh, it's just, well, it's all pointless. There's no justice. Everything is permitted. Well, everything is permitted. That's why we have laws. We try to get people to not do stuff that we don't want them to do, and they can still do those things. The only thing we can do is stop them uh, from doing it again, or stop them before they do it. So that's true regardless of if there's a God or not. Everything is permitted. So,
But we live according to a moral law that transcends our mere cultural milieu. Indeed,
do you have any proof of that? Do you have any citations at all? What do you mean are cultural? Well, you just said a while ago that atheists are using Christianity. That's a cultural perspective as well. So that would be false under your own statement earlier. So you just contradicted yourself. Which is it? You can't have it both ways. And also, uh, what are you talking about? Because not everybody lives by this morals. Obviously, people do bad things. So how do you explain that people are not living by that? Hmm.
we also live according to a natural law. To even have moral disagreements presupposes some standard of absolute goodness.
Really? According to whom? You? I mean, like, where's your proof of this? No, having moral disagreements doesn't uh, necessarily mean that. I. But what's your ethical system? I love that this is a very common thing. Talk about morals, don't talk about the ethics. What ethical system do you hold to? I'll tell you mine if you tell me yours. Yours is probably DCT, Divine Command Theory, which has lots of problems to it. But rather than talking about those, just to say morals, if you don't have, objective morals, you can't. Then there is a good and there is a bad, and wah, 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 same old complaint we've heard before. But it has no substance to it.
Similarly, moral praise and blame have no meaning without such a transcendent standard.
What the hell's transcendent mean? What do you mean by that?
A standard that mankind has progressively discovered, thanks in no small part to philosophical theology, contemplation, prayer, and if dare I say it, participation in the sacraments.
You're saying we're discovering morality as we stumble forward. That means the system that we were given is not a perfect system. It's not innate. It's not born into us. Then it's not hardwired or cooked into our DNA because we have to stumble and discover it through all these different various methods that you described, which means we don't have this innate moral sense that you said. So that contradicts yourself again. Either we have it and therefore we would not need to discover new things about it, or we don't have it, therefore we do have to discover new things about it. We have part of it, but we don't have the full of it. It's just nonsensical. That yes, morals are going to evolve and change. Of course they are, and so are ethics over time, depending on what your ethical system is, depending on what your morals point to as a result of that ethical system. These things have to change. You change or it dies. The 614 or 13 commands in the Bible. Well, of those, there's only a handful that Christians even try to follow or force on others. And of those, well, you can sort of trip around those and say, well, but those don't matter either because all you have to do is love people like yourself, and as long as you love God the most, doesn't really matter. It depends on your theology, of course. Depends on what God you're talking about. Depends on a lot of things.
Prayer, and if dare I say it, participation in the sacraments. In
Sacrament.
short,
Who cares about the belief in like if this was true then we ought to see churches as a whole, the religion as a whole, sacraments that suggest Catholicism to me, but I don't know. But we would see then more moral behavior, not less. And of course, we know the Catholic Church had the whole pedophile hiding scandal, which they still haven't apologized for. Really come out and said, yeah, we were wrong, and just say here's where those pastors are. No, they shuffled them around and they hid behind their political protection, and they did the typical yeah, well, it's really bad, but we're really not gonna, yeah, it's bad, but we're kind of not gonna comment. It's not really our fault, it's the pastor's fault. Like, you made a system that was bad. you know you don't let your pastors to marry, so that's a problem. You have them working with kids unattended, and all this. You've created a system that is ripe for exploitation, and then you wonder why it's exploited, and then you hide your pastors. So that's not moral behavior. If this was true, then we should see the Catholic Church as the pinnacle of morals and righteousness and whatnot. But no, they teach not to use contraceptives, not to use condoms. They don't want to teach about sex. Uh, so these things are negative. They produce the opposite of results of what they claim to want. They don't want people to get abortions. Well, but then you got to let people prevent having a baby because they want to have sex. Oh, well, you're not supposed to have sex. And I was like, yeah, but that's what people want to do. It's a very human thing, and so they deny that. So their 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 morals are skewed because their ethics are based upon what they think the commands of God are, and so they don't become this pinnacle of forward progress. They seem to fight sometimes against certain scientific endeavors, turning towards the more evangelistic types of Christianity. Negated tons of research on stem cells because that you can't do that. So that's not forward progress. That's not good morals. These could have saved who knows how many lives, how many different that delay in research cost who knows how much, and that was the fault of many Christians. And so you would say, you would think that their morals would be that they would maximize the well-being of humans, but that's not what we see. Islam, well, they'll just kill you if you're homosexual or you leave the religion. End of story. And they'll kill you if you're not Muslim, or they'll tax you a lot. If you are, maybe they'll let you live there, but you have to kowtow to them and pay them a tax. Yeah, no, and live in constant fear, basically, of them potentially killing you in any moment. So Islam's not any sort of moral uh, thing. So, what religion are you thinking of, or what theology are you thinking of, where there's an actual example of morals developing to better things rather than just well, generally speaking, yeah, but then if you're doing general speaking, then you have to account for all the other factors that are involved in moral foundations, ethical foundations, that there's other influences working upon the individual and the group. You know, churches were resistant against having female pastors. Now many have given up on that. Churches were resistant against homosexuals. Many have given up on that. The thing changes or it dies out, and so that's not a result of is that a result of them discovering new things? But it seems like the secular world is the one that's saying, hey, these things are fine, and the church is dragging its feet on it, and kicking and screaming to the finish line of getting better morals. So it seems that the secular morals, ethics are what drive humanity forward, not theology. So this appears to be just wrong, no matter how you look at it. But you give no examples, you give no citations, no anything for us to think that your assertion is true. You don't reference anything. No, it's like I've referenced several things. So where's the proof of anything that you said?
We live as though God does exist.
No, we don't. No, that doesn't really make sense. What do you mean by God? We live as if God exists. What you're saying is we live as if objective moral values exist. Are you saying that? Because that's not true either. You're not living as if there's an afterlife because you look both ways before you cross the street, right? If you thought there was an afterlife, you wouldn't care. So this is just wrong on its surface. Um, but it's a bald assertion. You don't have any proof for it. So,
Thus, the biblical phrase might not have been translated as "in the beginning was the Word," but "in the beginning was the point of it all."
uh, okay, so I guess you're smarter than the scholars or whoever the bleep it was that translated the Bible. All right, sure, whatever. Why not? Just toss that in there. So, why do you think that? And why would that matter? And why is that true? And how does that what about the whole humility of atheism bit? Are you gonna ever actually talk about any of that?
If atheism is true, there is no point to anything.
appeal to consequence, and also doesn't really make sense. Atheism is true. I don't know what you mean by that. It's incoherent.
There are good arguments for assuming that the whole thing has a point, and that it points ultimately to a divine and providential source.
Oh, really? Present a good argument.
We all live as though the Logos is a living reality in our discourse and in our lives.
What's the logos? What do you mean by that? How do you know that we live by that? What are you talking about here? Examples?
The proponents of atheism affirm the existence of God by being living embodiments of the Logos.
What the hell? So this is some strong precept here. You're a living embodiment of God, therefore God exists. So no. Actually, you're living as if there is no afterlife, therefore you're a living embodiment of atheism being true. It's incoherent. It's just absurd attempt at justification. At, just out of nowhere. Just goodness gracious. This is a mess.
And in our lives. The proponents affirm the existence of God by being living embodiments of the Logos, yet their words say otherwise. They live in contradiction.
It's coming from a guy who contradicted himself twice. Uh, what are you saying? How you haven't proven that point? You said there was good arguments, didn't present any arguments so far. You're just asserting things with bald assertions, sweeping generalizations. Uh, there's nothing of substance here. Um, and so we're finally getting to the part where we supposedly atheism lacks humility. Are we finally getting to that now?
Now, man, writes Lauren Isley, is the cosmic orphan. He is the only creature in the universe who asks why. Other animals have instincts to guide them, but man has learned to ask questions. Who am I? Man asks. Why am I here? Where am I going? Perhaps our
That's a weird ass tangent. Like, so what does that got to do with anything?
ability to frame universal propositions makes us unique from mere animals. A
We are an animal. We're different than other animals, but we're still an animal. So this is what an argument towards us being unique. That doesn't sound humble to me. It seems more humble to say yes, we're an animal. We're very much similar to these. We have similarities to the other animals. We're not that special. We're special in some ways, maybe to degrees, but okay, we have abilities other animals don't. But the humility there would be to admit what is true, not to rise humanity onto a pedestal. Oh, look how mighty we are! Look how amazing we are! So much for atheism being humility or lacking humility. It seems like you're the one that lacks humility regarding your view of humanity because you just basically tried to say, "Oh, it's better. We're better than all the other animals. We're not animals. In fact, we're not animals. We're something else. What are we? We're not an animal. What are we?"
full description of mankind um, takes us takes us how we are. A purely physical description of mankind will always be incomplete, and so goes the speculative fantasies of scientism.
The fuck? What? How do you know that? Like a purely physical description of what we are would be incomplete. Maybe that's true, and then scientism, like, what's that got to do with anything? What do you mean? Where in scientism does it say that? What are you talking about? What scientism have to do with atheism? You're incoherent. Let's like no points. What? This isn't even an argument. I can't. This isn't even an essay. Nothing supports the other thing before it. Just, what? My brain.
Now consider this. It seems that atheism is presumptuous even at the level of sensible objects.
No, because atheism isn't their worldview. You haven't to tell them what you think atheism is. Uh, so it's presumptuous. What? Like, wait, let me go back. This is just
Scientism. Now consider this. It seems that atheism is presumptuous even at the level of sensible objects. Now we hear sounds in the range of frequencies extending from about 20 to about 20,000 hertz. We see light whose wavelengths are longer than about 380 millimicrons and shorter than 760 millimicrons. Even as passive observers, we have access to only a portion of physical reality. Indeed, the bat and the honeybee glean of reality far different than we do.
yeah. Why is that? So this is more reason to say that our senses are incomplete. We don't have a full picture of reality. You just admitted it. Why would God make its creatures not be able to observe all the light, all the sounds, all the smells, all the taste, all the touch, all the things? So we'd have a full picture of reality. Why would we be limited? That makes sense completely via naturalism that we evolved, or even forget naturalism. It makes sense based on what we know in science. We evolved, and so we're limited because of that. It makes little to no sense on the idea that, well, we can just always blindly trust our senses to all, to full degree, or which is kind of something you didn't say, but I think you suggested in a sense that it's like, well, you can test all these other senses, you can trust them, so. But we don't see everything, we don't hear anything, so why don't we? That's bad. That's not good.
Glean of reality far different than we do. For an object to even have meaning, for it to even have saliency, we must already be tuned to perceive it. We must already have a framework or working set of assumptions in which to interpret and to classify it. So with mankind. That's why we're not mere animals. And according to Immanuel Kant's critique of pure reason, for there
Ah,
to be
jeez.
experience as such, we must already have sensations to must be given an organizational structure.
What?
Um,
That's it. That's it. That's the end. Wow. Where did Kant say that, and what, like, what page? Where that? Yeah. How does that relate? None of this. None of this detailed how atheism lacks humility, which doesn't make sense on the surface. That was the argument. Not a syllogism, so it's not an argument. Is it an essay? Well, the thesis statement was never supported by anything, so no, it's not an essay. So what did he do other than say words uh, and make many logical fallacies along the way? Uh, Desperately trying to complain about not believing in God because this is important. Okay, or what are you doing? I mean, just what was that? This is so disjointed, so broken, so absurd. Seems like you were reading a script that you wrote, but it doesn't seem like you asked anybody to look at it because there's so many tangents. nothing really connects. So this person said this person said that. In regards to humility, we've got truthmonger. Many animals are unique. That's true. We are apes. Correct. We are, yeah, okay, we're unique, but other animals are unique. That we're not mere animals is not a humble viewpoint. Correct. That's exactly what I'm saying. And so if it atheism isn't a thing that makes any declaration anyway, so it couldn't be that it lacks humility, because that's you're talking about a non-world view doing something that it can't do in the first place. But if you want to make this incoherent argument, then you're going to have some sort of structure to that. So an essay, you start with uh, the main statement that you want to support, and then you support it with the paragraphs that come after it, right? And then a syllogism is the other way around. The premises argue for the conclusion. Neither was on display here. This person said this person said that, and if this is true, then everything sucks, and if and that's not good. I don't like that, and you have to have objective morals for it to matter, and then you don't live this way, and so at what point was any sort of accusation of maybe you could have a particular atheist that wasn't uh, didn't have humility or something like that, but you certainly couldn't broad brush stroke it. I think that the idea that if you're a Christian or Jew, that God picked a small group of people to reveal itself to, that group is super special. Now, of course, the Jews go, well, we're not special. We're actually the worst thing. That's why God picked us. Like, yeah, your false humility doesn't work on me. I'm sorry, not sorry. No, you're special. God picked you to reveal itself to. Jesus, the people around it, they were special. God picked them to reveal itself to. So, you think that you will continue to live all forever. You will always exist. That's how special you are. That's not humble. That's arrogant. I I don't see the universe being meaningless, but only because I apply meaning to it. Objectively speaking, I don't know that I could even say if there was or wasn't that sort of thing, because I'm not in a position to evaluate the whole of it. It might be that it's just there. It might be that there's some purpose for it, and the purpose for it isn't us. We don't seem like the universe knew that we were going to happen. It seems like we're kind of just an accidental result of the universe, if anything. So whatever the purpose is of the universe, I don't think it would be about us. And then to assume it is about us, that would not be humble. So it seems to me that rather than arguing that not believing in God, or saying there's no God is non humble, you've actually successfully demonstrated that the opposite is true. So well done. All right, I said it would go for 3 hours, but I guess I wasn't. I underestimated how little he had to say that was wrong, and I also lost count of how many things he said that were wrong. So, um, yeah. Um. Anyways, bye. Whee! Extra lobster points if you comment on this video once it becomes a video. Thanks. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, and buy my book.